The signal came at midnight, Earth time. It was old. It was weak. And it carried the weight of millions of dying voices. Admiral Kang. Yuna stood alone in the command center of Earth's orbital station. She was 57 years old. Her hair had turned gray from decades of service. Her eyes had seen wars that history books would never mention. But she had never heard anything like this signal before. The message played again through the speakers. It was not in any human language. It was Moran. The words were simple. Even a child could understand them. Please help us. They are coming. We have no one else. Yuna closed her eyes and remembered. 50 years ago, when humanity first reached the stars, they were lost. Their ships were broken. Their people were dying. And it was the Moran who found them. The Moran gave humanity food. They gave them medicine. They taught them how to survive in a galaxy that did not want them. Now the Moran were calling for help. And the galaxy had turned its back. The doors behind Yuna opened. A young officer walked in. His name was Captain Beat Jin. He was 32 years old, tall, and strong. He commanded the EWS Thunderborn, the most decorated destroyer in the human fleet. His face was calm, but his eyes showed concern. Admiral, Jin said, the assembly has responded to the signal. Let me guess. Yuna replied without turning around. They said no. Jin nodded slowly. The Orvani High Chancellor called it a waste of resources. He said the Velen Reach is already lost. The Harrow have taken everything. There is nothing left to save. Yuna finally turned to face him. Her expression was hard like stone. The Moran helped us when we were nothing, when we were dying in the dark. And now we should abandon them because some old alien politician says so. Jin did not answer. He did not need to. They both knew what the right thing to do was. How many ships do we have ready? Yuna asked. 32 warships, Admiral. The 7th Fleet. They call us the Ghost Fleet because we operate in the shadows. But if we go to the Velen Reach, there will be no shadows. The Harrow will see us coming. Yuna walked to the main screen. She pulled up images of the Velen Reach. It was beautiful once. A spiral of bright stars and green planets. Now it was dark. The Harrow had consumed everything. They were machines. Not natural machines, but something worse. Something that ate civilizations and turned them into more machines. The Harrow cannot be negotiated with, Yuna said quietly. They cannot be reasoned with. They do not want peace. They only want to consume. The assembly fleet tried to fight them 100 years ago, Jin said. 10,000 ships. The Tessic sent their best warriors. The Orvani sent their greatest admirals. They all died. Every single one. Yuna smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had already made a decision. They went to negotiate. They went to show strength. They went to make the Harrow respect them. She turned to Jin. We're not going to do any of that. Then what are we going to do? We are going to fight. Not to win. Not to prove anything. We are going to fight because it is the right thing to do. Because the Moran called for help, and we are the only ones who answered. Jin stood straighter. His fear was still there. But something else was growing inside him. Pride. Hope. The feeling that maybe, just maybe, humanity could do something the rest of the galaxy could not. I will prepare the Thunderborn, he said. Good. And Captain? Yuna called after him as he walked toward the door. Tell Lieutenant Seohana to start analyzing every piece of data we have on the Harrow. I want to know how they think, how they move, how they die. Jin nodded and left. Yuna stood alone again. She looked at the signal still playing on the screen. The Moran voice sounded so tired, so scared. She placed her hand on the console. Hold on, she whispered. We are coming. 3 hours later, the Ghost Fleet began the move. 32 warships broke orbit around Earth. They were not the biggest ships in the galaxy. They were not the most advanced. But they were crewed by humans. And humans had something that other species did not understand. They had stubbornness. They had loyalty. And they had a memory that stretched across generations. The Galactic Assembly watched in shock. Messages flooded in from every corner of known space. The Orvani demanded that Earth stop. The Tessig warned of total destruction. Even species that had never spoken to humanity before sent messages asking if the humans had gone mad. Ambassador Shin Wan sat in the Earth Embassy on the assembly station. He was a calm man, always dressed in a simple gray suit. He had spent his whole life using words instead of weapons. But today, he had no words for the aliens who surrounded him. The Orvani High Chancellor appeared on his screen. The Chancellor was ancient. His skin was like cracked leather, and his eyes glowed with cold light. "Your fleet will be destroyed," the Chancellor said. "The Harrow cannot be defeated. You are throwing away lives for nothing." "We're throwing away lives for nothing." Juan smiled politely. "With respect, Chancellor, we were not asking for your permission." The Chancellor's eyes widened. "You dare to defy the Assembly?" "We dare to help our friends," Juan replied. "Something your people seem to have forgotten how to do." The transmission ended. Juan leaned back in his chair. His hands were shaking. He had just challenged the most powerful species in the galaxy. But he did not regret it. Somewhere in the darkness of space, Admiral Kang Yuna led her fleet toward the Vulcan Reach. She did not know if they would survive. She did not know if they could win. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. When the Moran called for help, humanity answered. And that was enough. Lieutenant Essie Ohana sat in her small office aboard the Thunderborn. She was young, only 28 years old. Her specialty was tactical analysis. She could look at any enemy and find their weakness. But the Harrow were different. They had no fear, no hesitation. They simply consumed. She stared at the data on her screen. Thousands of reports, millions of images. The Harrow had destroyed over 40 civilizations. No one had ever stopped them. But Hannah noticed something. A pattern. The Harrow did not think as individuals. They thought as one. A network. A hive mind. If you cut the connection, the machines became confused. They became weak. She grabbed her communicator. "Captain Beak Jin, I have something. I think I know how to hurt them." On the bridge of the Thunderborn, Jin received the message. For the first time since the mission began, he felt something other than fear. He felt hope. The Ghost Fleet traveled for 3 weeks through the emptiest parts of space. No stars, no planets, only darkness that stretched forever in every direction. The crew called this place the Outer Veil. It was where a light came to die. Commander Park. Tay walked through the engine room of the flagship Soul's Hammer. He was 60 years old, with hands covered in burns and scars from decades of work. He loved this ship. He treated it like his own child. Every wire, every pipe, every piece of metal had his attention. "How are the engines holding?" Admiral Kang Yuna asked through the communicator. "They are tired, Admiral," Tay replied. "But they will not fail. I made sure of that." Yuna smiled from the bridge. Tay had served with her for 20 years. She trusted him more than anyone else in the fleet. If he said the engines would hold, they would hold. On the Thunderborn, Lieutenant Issei Ohana presented her findings to Captain Beak Jin. She had spent every day since leaving Earth studying the Harrow. Now she finally had answers. "They are connected," Hana explained, pointing at diagrams on her screen. "Every machine shares a single mind. They think together. They move together. But this connection has a weakness." Jin leaned forward, What weakness? The signal. The thing that connects them, it can be disrupted. If we create a pulse strong enough, we can break their network, even for a few seconds. And when the connection breaks, the machines become blind. They cannot function. Jin thought about this. So we need to build something that can create this pulse. Commander Park Tae is already working on it. He calls them pulse cannons. They will not destroy the Harrow, but they will confuse them. And confused enemies are easier to kill. Jin nodded slowly. For the first time, the impossible mission seemed a little less impossible. In the medical bay of the Soul's Hammer, Dr. Mina studied samples of Harrow technology. She was the fleet's chief medical officer and also its best xenobiologist. Her job was to understand alien life. But the Harrow were not truly alive. She looked at the piece of machine under her microscope. It was small, no bigger than her finger. But inside it, she found something that made her blood run cold. "Admiral," she said into her communicator, "you need to see this." 20 minutes later, Yuna stood in the medical bay. Mina showed her the microscope image. "This is not just a machine," Mina explained. "Look closer. Do you see those patterns? Those are DNA structures. Organic material. The Harrow do not just consume civilizations, Admiral. They absorb them. Every machine carries pieces of the species they have destroyed." Yuna felt sick. "You mean?" "I mean, when the Harrow killed the Tessic fleet 100 years ago, they did not just destroy the ships. They took the Tessic minds, their memories, their souls, if you believe in such things. The Harrow carry the ghosts of every civilization they have ever consumed." Yuna stood in silence for a long moment. The enemy they were facing was not just a swarm of machines. It was a graveyard, a prison of souls. "Does anyone else know about this?" Yuna asked. "Not yet." "Good. Keep it that way. The crew does not need to know. Not until we finish the mission." Mina nodded, but her eyes showed fear. "Admiral, what if we fail? What if the Harrow take us too?" Yuna placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we will fight them from the inside. Humans are stubborn like that." The fleet continued through the outer veil. Sensors detected nothing for days. Then, on the 15th day, Ensign Cho Soon noticed something on his screen. "Captain," he said to Jin, "I am detecting movement ahead. Small objects. Hundreds of them." Jin stood from his chair. "Harrow scouts." The drones appeared on the main screen. They were ugly things. Black metal twisted into shapes that made no sense. They moved in perfect formation, scanning the darkness for anything to report to the main swarm. "All ships, stop engines," Admiral Yuna ordered through the fleet-wide channel. "Activate stealth protocols. No one moves. No one speaks. Let them pass." 32 warships went dark. Lights turned off. Engines stopped. Even the life support systems reduced to minimum power. The crew held their breath. The Harrow scouts passed slowly. Their sensors swept across the space where the human ships were hiding. One drone came close to the Thunderborn. So close that Jin could see the markings on its surface. Strange symbols. Letters from languages that no longer existed. The drone stopped. It turned toward the Thunderborn. Jin felt his heart pounding. His hand moved to the weapons control. If the drone detected them, the whole mission would be over before it began. Seconds passed. The drone's sensors flickered. Then, slowly, it turned away and continued with the others. Jin released his breath. That was too close. 2 days later, the fleet reached the edge of the outer veil. Before them lay a graveyard. Hundreds of destroyed ships floated in the darkness. Their hulls were torn open. Their weapons were cold. Their crews were long dead. "Tessic markings," Hana said quietly. "This is what remains of the assembly fleet. The one that tried to save the Velen Reach 100 years ago." The crew stared at the destruction. 10,000 ships had come here. None had returned. And now, 32 human ships were attempting the same mission. Admiral Yuna watched the graveyard through the main screen. She saw the fear in her crew's eyes. She understood it, but she could not let it spread. "Listen to me," she said through the fleet-wide channel. Her voice was calm but strong. "I know what you see. I know what you are thinking. Those ships came here with the same goal we have, and they failed." She paused. The fleet waited in silence. "But there is a difference between them and us. Those ships came here to negotiate. They came to show the Harrow that the galaxy was strong. They came with pride and arrogance. They thought the Harrow would respect power." Yuna shook her head. "They were wrong. We are not here to negotiate. We are not here to show strength. We are here because people are dying, and they asked for our help. We are here because 50 years ago, the Moran saved our ancestors when no one else would. We are here to repay that debt." The Harrow do not understand loyalty. They do not understand love. They do not understand why anyone would die for strangers. And that is their weakness. Because we understand those things. And they make us stronger than any machine. The fear began to fade. In its place grew something else. Determination, purpose, pride. Commander Park Tae spoke through the engineering channel. "Admiral, the pulse cannons are ready. 8 ships are now equipped. We can blind the bastards whenever you give the order." Yuna smiled. "Good work, Commander. Good work, everyone." The fleet left the graveyard behind and entered the Vulcan Reach. The spiral of dying stars stretched before them. And somewhere in the darkness, the Harrow were waiting. Ensign Cho Soon looked at the tactical display. Billions of signals. Billions of machines. More than any human had ever faced before. "Admiral," he said quietly. "There are so many of them." Yuna stood beside him. She looked at the same display, the same impossible numbers. "Good," she said. "We will not miss." The Ghost Fleet moved forward. The battle for the Velen Reach was about to begin. The Harrow came like a storm. Millions of machines poured from every direction. They moved together as one mind, one purpose: consume, destroy. Absorbed. Admiral Kang Yuna stood on the bridge of the Soul's Hammer. Her face showed no fear. Her voice carried no doubt. She watched the enemy approach on the tactical display and gave her first order. "All ships, formation Delta. Pulse cannons to the front. We fire together on my command." 32 warships moved into position. The 8 ships with pulse cannons formed a line at the center. Behind them, the rest of the fleet prepared their weapons. The Harrow reached firing range. Their weapons charged with a terrible red glow. Then they attacked. The first volley hit the human fleet like a hammer. Shields flashed and sparked under the impact. Warning alarms screamed through every ship. But the line held. "Return fire," Yuna commanded. Human weapons answered. Missiles streaked across the darkness. Cannon shells tore through the void. Harrow machines exploded by the thousands. But there were always more. Always so many more. On the Thunderborn, Captain Beak Jin gripped his command chair. His ship was in the center of the formation. Around him, his crew worked with perfect focus. Fear was there, hidden in their hearts. But training was stronger than fear. "Lieutenant Ha, what is the status of the enemy network?" Jin asked. SEO Hannah studied her screens. Data flowed like a river. "The Harrow are fully connected. Their command signal is coming from a central node somewhere behind their main force. If we destroy that node, we cripple them. Can you locate it?" "Not yet. There is too much interference. But the pulse cannons might help. Every time we fire them, the network weakens for a few seconds. During those seconds, I can trace the signal back to its source." Jin nodded. "Then we need to keep firing." The battle raged on. Every minute brought new destruction. Human ships took damage. Crew members died at their stations. But for every human loss, the Harrow lost 10,000 machines. Warrant Officer Nam Q stood at the weapons console of the Thunderborn. He was a quiet man. He rarely spoke. But when he fired, he never missed. His hands moved across the controls with deadly precision. A Harrow destroyer came straight at the Thunderborn. Its weapons were charging for a killing blow. Nam Q did not panic. He adjusted his aim by a single degree. Then he fired. The shot hit the Harrow destroyer's core. The machine exploded in a ball of fire. Its pieces scattered harmlessly into space. "Good shot," Jin said. Nam Q simply nodded and moved to the next target. Above the main battle, Pilot OJ led his fighter squadron into the heart of the Harrow swarm. The Black Kites were humanity's elite interceptors. 20 pilots. 20 small ships. They flew where the large warships could not go. "Black Kites, stay together," Jay ordered through his helmet radio. "Target the carrier clusters. Those are the ones launching new drones. Take them out, and the swarm cannot replace its losses." The fighters dove into the chaos. Harrow drones surrounded them from every side. Jay pulled his ship into a tight spin, dodging weapons fire by inches. He fired his missiles at a massive carrier. The carrier broke apart, killing thousands of drones before they could launch. "One down." Jay shouted dot around him. His pilots did the same. Carriers exploded. Drones lost their motherships. The swarm began to thin, but the Harrow were not stupid. They adapted. They sent dedicated hunters after the Black Kites. 3 human fighters were destroyed in seconds. "Fall back to the fleet," Jay ordered. "We have done enough." The surviving fighters retreated. Jay looked at his sensor display. He had lost 3 pilots, 3 friends, but they had destroyed 17 carriers. The math was terrible, but it was working. On the Soul's Hammer, Admiral Yuna watched the battle unfold. They were winning. Barely, but they were winning. "Admiral," a tactical officer called out. "The Harrow are changing formation. They are pulling back their main force." Yuna frowned. The Harrow did not retreat. They did not feel fear. So why were they pulling back? Then she understood. They are adapting. They are studying our pulse cannons. "Get me Commander Park Tae." Tae's voice came through the communicator. "I see it too, Admiral. They are shielding their network nodes. The next time we fire the pulse cannons, the effect will be weaker." "How much weaker?" "Maybe half? Maybe less." "They learn fast, Admiral. Faster than any enemy I have ever seen." Yuna closed her eyes for a moment. The Harrow were machines. They could not feel fear or pain. But they could think. They could adapt. And that made them far more dangerous than any living enemy. "Captain Beak Jin," Yuna said through the fleet channel. "New orders. I want the Thunderborn to lead a strike force directly at the Harrow command node." Jin's voice came back, steady as always. "We do not know where the command node is, Admiral. Lieutenant Hana does. Or she will, after the next pulse cannon volley. When she locates the node, you attack. Full speed. No hesitation. We may not get another chance." There was a pause. Then Jin replied, "Understood, Admiral. The Thunderborn is ready." Yuna gave the signal. 8 ships fired their pulse cannons at once. A wave of energy swept through the Harrow swarm. Machines went dark. Formations scattered. For 3 precious seconds, the network was broken. On the Thunderborn, Lieutenant Hana traced the signal. Her fingers flew across her console. The data was there, hidden in the chaos. She found it. "Captain, the command node. It is located at coordinates 472. A large structure hidden behind the main swarm. It looks like a moon, but it is not natural. It is a machine." Jin smiled. A cold, determined smile. All hands, battle stations. We are going hunting. The Thunderborn broke formation. 3 other destroyers followed. They pushed through the weakened Harrow lines at full speed. Machines tried to stop them. Drones swarmed from every side. But the human ships were too fast, too determined. They blasted through everything in their path. The command node appeared on the main screen. It was massive. A sphere of black metal covered in strange lights. Signals poured out from it, commanding the entire Harrow swarm. All weapons target the core. Gene ordered. NAMQ locked on. His hands were steady. Weapons ready, Captain. Fire everything. The Thunderborn and its escort ships released every weapon they had. Missiles, cannons, energy beams. Everything hit the command node at the same moment. The explosion was blinding. The sphere cracked open. Fire poured from its wounds. And across the entire Velen Reach, the Harrow swarm went silent. Machines stopped moving. Drones drifted without direction. Carriers stopped launching. For the first time in a century, the Harrow were not advancing. Back on Earth, Ambassador Shin Wan received a message from the Ovani High Chancellor. The alien's voice was confused. What are your ships doing? What is happening to the Harrow? Huan looked at the tactical report. A smile spread across his face. They are winning, he said simply. The humans are winning. The first wave was broken. But Admiral Yuna knew this was not over. The Harrow would rebuild. They would adapt again. Reinforcements would come, but through the debris and the silence, a new signal appeared. Faint, weak, but unmistakable. Survivors on Myra Prime. Millions of Moran were still alive, hiding beneath the surface. Yuna looked at her crew. They were exhausted, wounded, but their eyes burned with purpose. All ships, advance, she ordered. We are not leaving anyone behind. The Ghost Fleet reached Myra Prime just as the sun began to rise over its broken surface. Once, this world was beautiful. Green forests, blue oceans, cities that touched the clouds. Now, only scars remained. The Harrow had taken everything above the ground. But beneath the surface, life still held on. Admiral Kang Yuna looked at the planet through the main screen. Somewhere down there, millions of Moran were waiting, hiding, praying that someone would come. Launch the rescue shuttles, she ordered, and keep all weapons hot. The Harrow will not stay quiet for long. The shuttles descended through the ruined atmosphere. Each one carried soldiers, medics, and supplies. The mission was simple. Find the survivors. Bring them to the ships. Get out before the enemy returned. Sergeant Moon Soo led the first ground team. He was 40 years old, with a face that showed every battle he had survived. His soldiers followed him through the wreckage of a destroyed city. Their boots crunched on broken glass and twisted metal. Spread out, Moon Soo ordered. Look for entrances to the underground shelters. The Myran are hiding beneath our feet. They found the first entrance hidden under a collapsed building. A small door, barely visible, covered in dust and debris. Moon Soo opened it and led his team down into the darkness. The tunnel was long and narrow. The air was stale, but at the end, there was light. And voices. The shelter was larger than Moon Soo expected. Hundreds of Moran huddled together in the dim glow of emergency lights. They were small creatures, no taller than a human child. Their skin was pale blue. Their large eyes reflected the fear they had lived with for months. When they saw the human soldiers, they did not move. They did not speak. They simply stared as if they could not believe what they were seeing. Moon Soo knelt down to meet their eyes. We are here to help, he said gently. We are taking you somewhere safe. An elderly Moran stepped forward. He was different from the others. Older, wiser, His name was Elder Voss, and he had led his people through the darkest time in their history. "You are human," Voss said. His voice was weak but filled with wonder. "We sent a message. We did not think anyone would hear." "We heard," Moonsu replied. "And we came." Voss looked at the soldiers. Tears began to form in his large eyes. "The galaxy abandoned us. The assembly told us to die quietly. But you came. Why? We are nothing to you." Moonsu stood up. He placed a hand on his chest. 50 years ago, when my grandfather was a young man, the Moran found his ship. He was dying. His crew was dying. Your people saved them. My grandmother survived because of your kindness. Humans do not forget things like that." Voss closed his eyes. The tears fell freely now. "We thought we were alone. We thought no one remembered." "We remember," Moonsu said. "Now please, follow us. We do not have much time." The evacuation began. Shuttle after shuttle lifted off from the planet's surface, each one filled with Myran survivors. Old and young, sick and healthy. They had been hiding for months, waiting for death. Now they were flying toward life. Medic Zhang Yuri worked without rest. She was young, only 25 years old, with quick hands and a kind heart. She moved through the crowded shuttle bays, treating wounded Moran alongside wounded humans. A young Moran child held onto Yuri's arm. The child was scared, lost. Her family was somewhere else in the fleet. "It is okay," Yuri said softly. "I will stay with you until we find your parents." The child looked up at her with those large, wondering eyes. "Are you an angel?" Yuri smiled. "No, I am just a human." "Humans are strange," the child said. "You came to die for us. We came to live for you," Yuri corrected. "There is a difference." On the Soul's Hammer, Admiral Yuna met with Elder Voss through a holographic connection. The old Moran looked at her with deep respect. "Admiral Kang Yuna," Voss said, "my people will remember your name for 1,000 generations. You have given us back our future." Yuna shook her head. "We have not won yet, Elder. The Harrow will return. They always return." "I know. But even if we die tomorrow, we die knowing that someone cared. That is more than we hope for." Yuna wanted to say something comforting, but before she could speak, alarms began to scream across the fleet. "Admiral!" the tactical officer shouted. "Harrow reinforcements incoming. They are coming from the outer system. Thousands of ships. No, tens of thousands." Yuna looked at the sensor display. Her blood ran cold. The second wave was 3 times larger than the first. The Harrow had not just rebuilt. They had multiplied. "How long until they reach us?" she asked. 2 hours. Maybe less. Yuna closed the connection with Elder Voss. She turned to her crew. They were tired. Many were wounded. But they stood ready, waiting for her orders. "We hold the line," Yuna said. "We give the rescue teams every minute they need. No one retreats. No one gives up. Understood?" "Yes, Admiral." The battle began again. The Harrow swarm slammed into the human fleet with terrible force. Ships exploded. Crew members died. But the line held. On the Thunderborn, Captain Beekjin fought with everything he had. His ship was damaged. Half of his weapons were offline. But he refused to fall back. "Reroute power from non-essential systems," he ordered. "Keep the main cannons firing." Lieutenant Hannah worked at her console. Her hands were shaking from exhaustion, but her mind was still sharp. She looked at the Harrow movements. She looked at the signals. And then she saw it. "Captain, I know where their central intelligence is. It is not just a command node. It is the brain. The thing that thinks for all of them. It is hidden on the moon. Jin looked at her. The moon? The one orbiting Myra Prime? Yes, that is not a natural moon. It is a machine. If we destroy it, we destroy the Harrow intelligence. The swarm will die. Jin opened a channel to Admiral Yuna. Admiral, we have found the target. The Harrow brain is on the moon. But getting there will require someone to break through the entire swarm. Yuna listened. She looked at the tactical display. The Soul's hammer was badly damaged. The Thunderborn was in no better shape. But someone had to go. I will take the Soul's hammer, Yuna said. Admiral, that is a suicide mission. I know, but I am the one who brought you all here. I should be the one to finish it. She paused. Captain, I am placing you in command of the fleet. Get those people home. Jin wanted to argue. He wanted to say that he should go instead, but he looked at his crew. He looked at the Moran survivors still being rescued. Someone had to stay and protect them. Understood, Admiral, he said quietly. It has been an honor. Yuna smiled. The honor was mine, Captain. Now go. Save those people. The Soul's hammer broke away from the fleet. It flew straight toward the Harrow swarm, weapons blazing. Commander Park Tae pushed the engines harder than they had ever been pushed. Admiral, Tae said, whatever happens, I want you to know. This ship has never been prouder. Yuna placed her hand on the console. Neither have I, old friend. Neither have I. The Soul's hammer reached the moon. Before them was the entrance to the Harrow Central Intelligence, a gateway into the heart of the machine. Yuna looked at her crew. They were scared, but they were ready. Whatever happens next, she said. Know this. We made them remember what humans are capable of. The ship descended into the darkness. The final battle was about to begin. The Soul's hammer descended into the heart of the Harrow moon. The walls around them were not stone or ice. They were machine. Black metal that pulsed with strange light. The deeper they went, the stronger the pulse became. Admiral Kang Yuna stood at the front of the boarding party. 20 soldiers followed her through the narrow corridors. Their weapons were ready. Their hearts were pounding. But no one turned back. The Central Intelligence should be at the core, Yuna said. We find it. We destroy it. We end this. They moved quickly through the darkness. Harrow drones appeared from the walls, but the soldiers cut them down before they could attack. The machines here were different, slower, more confused. They were too close to the brain, too connected. They could not think for themselves. Commander Park Tae stayed on the ship. He was preparing something. A virus. A weapon that would spread through the Harrow network and destroy it from the inside. All Yuna had to do was upload it to the Central Intelligence. Admiral, Tae said through the communicator, the virus is ready, but you will need to maintain a direct connection for at least 30 seconds. The intelligence will fight back. It will try to stop you. 30 seconds, Yuna repeated. I can do 30 seconds. They reached the core. It was a massive chamber filled with light and sound. At the center stood the Harrow intelligence. Not a machine. Not a computer. Something else. Something alive in a way that made no sense. It looked like a brain. A giant brain made of metal and wire and stolen memories. Faces flickered across its surface. Voices whispered in languages that had been dead for centuries. The Tasik. The Orvani. Dozens of species that the Harrow had consumed. Yuna stared at it. For a moment, she felt pity. This thing was a prison. A collection of souls that could never rest. Then the intelligence spoke. Human. The voice was many voices. Old and young. Male and female. All speaking at once. You have come far. Farther than any before you. But you cannot win. We are eternal. We are infinite. We consume all things. Yuna stepped forward. You are a machine. Machines can be broken. We are more than machine. We are memory. We are the end of all things. When you die, you will join us. Your thoughts will become our thoughts. Your soul will feed our hunger. Yuna smiled. It was the smile of someone who had already made peace with death. Matey, but before that happens, I'm going to burn you down. She raised her weapon and fired. The soldiers attacked from every side. The intelligence screamed as bullets and energy beams tore into its surface, but the intelligence fought back. Cables shot out from the walls. Soldiers were grabbed and thrown. Yuna dodged a strike that nearly took her head. She rolled forward and slammed the data drive into a connection port. Tay, start the upload. The virus began to spread. The intelligence screamed louder. The faces on its surface twisted in pain. The voices begged for mercy, but Yuna held on. 10 seconds. 20 seconds. The intelligence struck her with a cable. She felt ribs crack. Blood filled her mouth. But she did not let go. 25 seconds, Tay counted through the communicator. 26, 27. The intelligence focused all its power on Yuna. It tried to pull her away. It tried to break her. But she grabbed the connection port with both hands and held on with everything she had left. 29, 30. Upload complete. The virus spread through the network. Across the Velen Reach, every Harrow machine began to fail. Drones fell from the sky. Carriers stopped moving. The swarm that had consumed 40 civilizations went silent forever. The intelligence let out one final scream. Then it shattered. The light faded. The voices went quiet. And the core began to collapse. Admiral, we need to leave now. A soldier shouted Dong Yun, could not move. Her body was broken, but her soldiers lifted her. They carried her through the collapsing corridors. They reached the Soul's Hammer just as the moon began to break apart. All engines full power. Tay shouted. Get us out of here. The ship flew toward the surface. Fire and debris chased them. For a terrible moment, it seemed like they would not make it. But Tay pushed the engines beyond their limits. The ship burst through the surface and into open space. Behind them, the Harrow moon exploded. A wave of light swept across the system. And then there was silence. True silence. For the first time in a century, the Velen Reach was free. Captain Beak Jin watched from the Thunderborn. He saw the explosion. He saw the Harrow machines falling dead across the battlefield. And he saw the escape pods launching from the dying Soul's Hammer. Admiral Yuna's pod is aboard. A crew member shouted. She is alive. Badly wounded, but alive. Jin closed his eyes. Relief washed over him like a wave. They had won. Against all odds, against all reason, they had won. The rescue was complete. 7 million Moran survivors were safely aboard the human fleet. The Ghost Fleet, what remained of it, began the long journey home. 1 year later, the galaxy had changed. Admiral Kang Yuna recovered from her wounds. The doctors said it was a miracle. She said it was stubbornness. She retired from active service and became an advisor to the Galactic Assembly. The species who once dismissed humanity now listened carefully to every word. She said, Captain. Beak Jin was promoted to Fleet Admiral. He oversaw the construction of a new class of warship, the most powerful ships ever built by human hands. They were called the Kang class, in honor of the woman who had led them to victory. The Galactic Assembly formally apologized to humanity. Earth was elevated to full council membership. The Irvani High Chancellor, the same one who had called humans foolish, personally traveled to Earth to shake hands with Ambassador Shin Wan. We were wrong about your people, the Chancellor admitted. We thought you were weak. We thought you were reckless. But you saw something we had forgotten. You saw that some things are worth fighting for, even when victory seems impossible. Juan accepted the apology with grace. But inside, he felt something else. Pride. Pride in his species. Pride in what they had accomplished. Elder Vos addressed the Galactic Assembly in person. He stood before hundreds of alien delegates, small and frail but burning with gratitude. "We called into the void," he said. "We expected silence. We expected death. Instead, we received thunder. Let the galaxy remember. When no one else answered, the humans came. They did not ask what we could give them. They did not ask for payment or power. They came because we needed help. That is who they are. That is what humanity means." The speech was broadcast across every world in the galaxy. Species that had never cared about Earth suddenly wanted to know more. They wanted alliances, friendships, partnerships. The balance of galactic power shifted, and humanity stood at the center. But on Earth, the celebrations were quieter. In a garden outside the fleet headquarters, a memorial stood. Simple white stone carved with names. The names of every human who had died in the Velen Reach. Lieutenant Cho Sung, now promoted to full lieutenant, visited the memorial with his grandmother. She was very old now. She moved slowly, but her eyes were still bright. "This is where we remember them," Sung said. His grandmother nodded. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small flower. She placed it at the base of the memorial. "Your grandfather would be proud," she said. "He always said that someday humans would repay the Moran for their kindness. He just never thought he would live to see it." Sung looked at the names carved in the stone. He knew some of them. Friends, teachers, heroes. "Do you think they knew?" he asked. "Do you think they knew the galaxy would remember what they did?" His grandmother smiled. "They did not do it to be remembered. They did it because it was right. That is the difference between fame and honor." Sung nodded. He understood now. The galaxy might remember the battle. The historians might write about the strategy and the weapons and the victories. But what truly mattered was simpler than that dot. When the Moran called for help, humanity answered. They did not know if they would win. They did not know if they would survive. But they went anyway, because that was who they were. The inscription on the memorial said it all. They called. We answered. That is who we are. The sun set over Earth. The stars began to appear, one by one. Somewhere out there, on worlds that humans had never seen, species looked up at those same stars and wondered. They wondered about the strange creatures from a small blue planet who had changed everything. And in the silence of space, the reverberations of what humanity had done continued to spread. Farther and farther. Across the galaxy. Forever.